So today on Beyond Scaling, I'm joined by Jason Fishman, co-founder and CEO of Digital Niche Agency and member of the Forbes Agency Council. Jason works at the sharp end of digital growth, working across performance marketing, investor acquisition, and crowdfunding campaigns that not just there to chase clicks, but to actually raise capital. What I find interesting, Jason, about your work is that it sits in a space most people never see, right? Where marketing meets investor psychology, regulation, and real financial implications. So this isn't going to be a conversation about hacks or trends. It's about, what actually works when the stakes are high and momentum matters, I suppose. So first of all, Jason, thank you. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Lloyd. Been looking forward to this. Have enjoyed our discussions to date. So had a big circle on my calendar about the podcast, and today is the day. Let's do it.
Excellent, man. I appreciate that very much. Jason, I think best place to start, because it's a bit of a mystery to me to begin with. I don't think many people, as I mentioned, have exposure to what you guys do there and where this fits into the whole system. So give us your elevator pitch. What do DNA go? What do you do? What do you guys do there?
In short, I run an investor and user acquisition agency that's worked with over 500 brands on capital raises that have collectively produced 9 figures of funding through content, advertising, and outreach channels. Period. Could go into far more detail around it. And I got into the space. I don't know if this goes beyond the elevator pitch, but my why, I've started a growth marketing firm. Capital raising was a common theme among our clientele, whether they asked us to work on the marketing section of their business plan, their pitch deck, a first marketing campaign where the results were going to be presented to their investor and capital could be injected to then scale those efforts. I was even being asked to participate in those meetings. I really like the way you talk about our growth model. Can you talk about that to our investors for us? So once I learned about these laws that allowed for solicitation, allowed for digital marketing to investors, the light bulb went off, because now a founder was not limited just to their own network or perhaps their network's network. Now they could go after millions of investors, build awareness, have the right messaging, the right, clever campaign to measure conversions and then ramp up what's working.
Does that change the way you approach marketing then when I suppose you're pitching to investors as opposed to pitching to consumers or users, right? Is it a different marketing strategy you use then? Is there a different psychology involved?
From the high level view, I'm targeting audiences and driving them down marketing funnels. It differs for every initiative, let alone every client. So within a client's campaign. And there are different types of investor acquisition formats. Just to throw a few acronyms at it, and this isn't to confuse, just to show some distinctions. There's Reg D, which is accredited investors only, high net worth, high household income audiences. I think that's what a lot of people picture when they hear investor acquisition. And it does have an offline, online component. There are similarities to a traditional VC fundraise, and then, very, very strong contrast. You then have Reg CF and Regulation A+. Regulation crowdfunding and Regulation A+ allow for both retail and accredited investors. You could target any adult. So in many cases, it's investimers. Not a term I coined, but one that I point to. And I think, illustrates a bit where if it's a B2C company, let's say it's an e-commerce, platform or, whatever it looks like, working with an entertainment project, just had a big meeting with yesterday, that they can target their future audience. They can build, a network of people who are going to buy tickets for the film, share with their friends, their family. So you actually are targeting consumers. You're just bringing them in as shareholders as well. And you could picture these funnels that begin with investment or begin with the actual product. This could be B2B, by the way, as well. I can speak to what that looks like, but even clients. And then they interweave. So it's not just, hey, I'm pitching sharks in Shark Tank. That is part of it. But the audience can be far more encompassing.
Technology's really opened the doors for that now. I see a few different platforms with these fundraising campaigns.
Yes.
Are there any of those that you prefer to work with? Not to try and name drop or advertise, but is there which ones work well? Which ones have constraints? Is it agnostic? Does it matter?
You want me to say, hey, this platform's not good, big headline
No,
for
no,
the
no, no, no. I'm
thumbnail
not
of the
looking for any
podcast,
clickbait.
right? No, I am platform agnostic. I could tell you the pros, I could tell you the cons for every
Yeah.
platform. And it's really a choice from the issuer, the founder, of where they want to invest time, what platforms will maybe yield the best results for them. There's not one black and white answer. I would say a distinction is self-publishing versus being on a platform. In the U.S., we have FINRA-regulated portals. By SEC guidelines, these portals basically serve as marketplaces. So there may be 50, there may be 200 deals live on that one site. Start Engine, WeFunder would be good examples of this. There's also Net Capital and Republic. Those are 10, 20 deals live at a time. There's about 90 FINRA regulated portals, 10, 20 that, really bring in investments any given month. But 90 are registered. You then have self-publishing. These are typically broker-dealers that have built a tech platform so that you can put the offering page on your own site. None of your investors are showing up on a marketplace and getting emails to participate in other deals, even if they didn't complete the checkout process for your round. You own all the data. You text message, email automations as investors get to different stages of the funnel. This is great if you have a large existing audience or a substantial marketing campaign. I won't even say budget, but campaign, because you are responsible for all of the traffic that gets there. But you can build a more sophisticated page in many cases. So that's the big contrast. From there, it's a matter of how you're going to use these tools. Not one is going to just deliver the results for you. They could amplify as you hit different milestones and their audience sees that traction. But again, there's pluses and minuses for each.
Where do you see the common trends for those who succeed in these campaigns versus those who fail? Where do founders make mistakes in bringing this forward for a campaign, for a crowdfunding campaign?
Campaigns are successful because they have enough traffic at a high enough conversion rate. Given a strong, average investment amount, but even projecting at conservative amounts, that's what it comes down to. That is the 30,000 foot, view down meters, 10,000. It is the high level view. But when I see a campaign that underproduces, there's typically not enough traffic, not enough awareness. They didn't give it a chance. Too few of investors got there. There are constraints with marketing budget or existing audience, sure. But I'll look at a campaign that had a good conversion rate, just not enough investors that got there. Conversion rate, what supports that? Content marketing, headline-worthy announcements on a weekly basis distributed across social media channels, email, newsletter, and drip systems, long-form content, definitely webinars, articles, videos, updates on the offering page section, press appearances, podcast appearances, talking at conferences, having all of that live in an ecosystem where if an investor's searching around and doing their due diligence, even the customers, even the investors, even the retail, that they want to look and see, hey, what's beyond what the brand's telling me in their pitch? What do I see online? Is that present? Is it showcasing third-party validation and proof? Is it showing, thousands of investments? We work with one group, they have over 50,000 investors. People who've actually invested in own shares in this private company. They've raised over 60 million at this point. It's high volumes of these small investments. I would also tell you that the nuances of targeting. I mentioned the high level view and driving audiences through funnels, but it is far more strategic than that. We've built a database of over 1.8 million historic, I call them equity crowdfunding investors. So I know they've participated in deals. They may have an account on some of these platforms. They're going to be more likely to convert and grow their portfolio. So also being very focused on who you're reaching and what that traffic consists of, what messaging you're presenting to them, what funnel that you're taking them down. A lot of issuers will launch a campaign. I just want to see how it goes. Maybe we'll do some marketing afterwards. not the right approach. You want to build a strategy. You want that first day, let alone the first week, first month to be impactful and create a strong enough foundation to hit your goals. 50% of the deals are pretty stagnant. The median raise is very low in the space. The top 10%, I would say, get all of the investments. Happy to say we work with many of those groups. I understand that formula. I'll tell you, it's not, set in stone and works every time, but without that type of infrastructure, without that strategy, without those tactics rolling out, campaigns have a very small chance of success, kind of shooting in the dark.
Talk to me about your strategy, Jason. I'm sure there's a lot of the secret sauce there that you don't want to put out there, but it's on your website. You've got an 8-point strategy. Talk us through that.
Yeah. Our secret sauce is our audience.
I come to you today. I've got a product. I'm bringing it to market. I've got 4 or 5 paying customers. They love the product. It's working well. Where do we start?
Well, the secret sauce is the audience. Outside of that, I like to be an open book. I want to see a higher success rate industry-wide. I serve on the Crowdfund Professional Association board. I'm actually vice president here in 2026.
Okay.
We're advocating for expansions to the rules, the ability to raise more streamlined, easier process to be able to launch these campaigns. So I love to educate on this. I believe there's a lot of misconceptions. What I would tell you is on Reg CF, you could raise up to $5 million. You could do a side-by-side Reg D to go above those amounts and put those accredited investors into that filing. You want to make sure everything's compliant and work with legal and accounting. There's other pieces to this beyond just marketing. But I would tell you, Lloyd, that you need to bring your first degree network to the campaign in the initial stages. It could be in pre-launch. There's an official test the waters as defined by the SEC period that you can use and get reservations in. Whatever it takes to have that first day, first week, surpass 100K, 250K, more. And that's usually from warmer targets, people who have a direct connection with you, with the team, with the company, with the product, your social audiences, your email lists. Some founders really exhaust this and it's very successful, and it says a lot to cold audiences that they then bring to the offering page later. Others do very minimal here and they get stuck. It's tough to convince an investor that you don't have a direct relationship with that your company is going to disrupt a vertical and take on more market share, take on more revenue, take on more users if you have $17,000 raised. Even 47 or 77, you're not anticipating the same conversion rate if it's 117 or 217 or 517 or 1,017. There is social dynamics that occur on these campaigns. It's the crowd effect. It's the line around the block. And if you start with too few investors to point at, investment at least, investment size, it is an empty restaurant sensation. Product looks good, the place looks nice, but no one's here. That says something. So I would start it there. I would then move into the strategy. That model I've built, the 8-point plan, in my eyes is the best approach towards creating a marketing plan here. Always open to other formats, but I believe it brings everything into account. Where you're looking at the industry and pulling stats, you're looking at competitors and what ads they're running to the same investors you're going to be targeting, to the content that they're getting out, where they're being featured. You put together a whole audit, and then you define the target audiences, the marketing channels that you're going to reach them on, the creative that you're going to be distributing to them organically through content, paid through advertising, strategic partnership opportunities that can really accelerate this and have pools of your target audience that you could tap into. Projections, the only way to measure is with numbers. So instead of just putting, a toe in the water and seeing what happens, understand where your traffic's going to be coming from with average, conversion rates and investment amounts, what that's going to project, and at each stop along the road. That later allows you to identify key drivers and scale those up quicker, see where traffic's falling off in the algorithm for any channel that's underperforming, and make optimizations there. You put all this into an executive summary, a 2-page version for whomever you're working with, whether that's internal marketers or agencies or consultants or even just publishers and people who are going to be featuring you, and you could talk about your campaign and what's going to work. Having a strong enough offering page and pitch video So if an investor never speaks with you, it does the selling for you. And, a video that encapsulates what a sit down would consist of, social proof all the way through. It's something I say a lot, of course. Talking about all the things an investor wants to see around the use of proceeds, the team, the problem, the solution. You have to be careful about forward-looking statements, but you have a lot more room to talk about how the industry is growing and really paint the picture around that opportunity, all the value points of the product, even comparisons, so that a prospective investor is excited and even has a fear of missing out on the deal. And then just driving enough traffic and having enough content updates all the way through.
And what's the biggest platform then? You mentioned organic content. How do you define organic content, Jason? That's bandied about quite a lot for people not in the space. It's not a familiar phrase then. It's a familiar phrase, but it's not a well understood phrase. I don't think.
Sure. Well, the biggest distinction is you have paid and you have organic. Paid is advertising. So it's content that you're essentially paying to have distributed, whether the paid is a social ad, on Meta, it's an ad on Google, it's a banner ad, it's a sponsored content piece, it's a video ad across a major media website or app, a vertical specific and niche website or app, could be a finance app. Some of those have newsletter placements that you can buy as advertising. The organic would be the self-published, the earned aspects of that. So posting a blog on your website, an article on an article platform, a Medium, a Substack, LinkedIn publishing, social media posts across, a variety of channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, Signal. There's a variety of investor-specific platforms at that. If you're appearing on a podcast, could be looked at as an organic. You've owned, and then you have third-party organic content pieces, but it's essentially content that is not paid and is utilizing these channels.
Okay, that makes sense. And talk to me about the different platforms then, right? When it comes to business, I certainly have a habit of falling into LinkedIn, and that's kind of my one track lane. LinkedIn's my go-to for everything.
Okay.
I don't use Facebook. I don't use TikTok. I was talking to a marketer recently on the podcast who started a TikTok channel a year ago. And he's saying how well that's performing and how much business he gets through his TikTok channel. Is that something you're seeing as well? And his TikTok channel, it was Federico Savandi, and how he was describing it to me was it's more a day in the life of fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
It's less formal like LinkedIn, where it's everything's very formal and very structured. On TikTok, it's kind of raw then, if you like.
Sure.
How important are those platforms to go alongside the LinkedIn platform?
Yeah. Well, let me start with LinkedIn. I believe LinkedIn is underrated for outreach. You can find individuals who put a job title of investor on LinkedIn. You could search them. You can get a Sales Navigator subscription and almost have a CRM, put together lists and do more detailed searches on LinkedIn. You could send 25 invitations per day towards these prospects, even searching by, their geographical location. Proximity has a power to it. If you're talking about an in-person meeting, they may not take you up on it, but just have more comfort speaking with you. So you can be very, very focused on who you're going after and send an invitation. Look for a 20% or higher acceptance rate of those invitations. Look for a 20% or higher response rate to messages that you send those new contacts. Even include a scheduling link in there. I find it to be stronger than email outreach. It is a tool that you should be using today if you're not, whether it's towards strategic partnerships or investments or clients, whatever it looks like. You could find who you're going after on LinkedIn. I like LinkedIn a lot for content, and you can be posting there. You could be putting articles there. You create a newsletter on there. You can create events on there. Broadcast your webinars, have all different types of tools to be able to distribute content on LinkedIn. I could go on and on about groups. There's so much you can do. I also really like the algorithm. So imagine if you had 10 of your investors comment on one of your posts, and then it goes into their feeds on LinkedIn. It's a lot easier to do that and show up in the people you're tagging's feeds on LinkedIn and on other platforms. There's then LinkedIn advertising. I don't use that in most of my campaigns, but you can have in-mail and different placements that can get attention. I find the posts in the feed don't get the same type of engagement that I get on some of these other social ad platforms. But LinkedIn, nothing short of amazing. Like you said, you should absolutely include that into your strategy. I am seeing more content that I would expect to be published on Facebook on LinkedIn as well, where it's a founder and a video of them playing with their son or their daughter, or talking about a trip, gratitude, the work-life balance. So there is room for content that's a little less polished, a little more raw there today. It then comes down to your target audience. Where are they? What do they do online? What do they do on the weekends? What do they do outside of work? Who influences them? These are all questions you want to ask about your target audiences and building those personas. And I could talk about that for the next hour. But just looking at where they go online, you want to have a presence on those social platforms, organic with the posts and feeding into a strategy that lives in a content calendar. You could test advertising there as well. My philosophy, the name of my podcast, Test, Optimize, Scale. So you want to prioritize which channels that you want to test, optimize each of those to improve performance, and then optimize towards which ones are working best, and then scale the efforts that are producing the most tangible results for you. So that could include TikTok. I've seen it work very well on campaigns. I've seen it underproduce on campaigns as well, particularly on the advertising. I've seen outstanding advertising metrics there in comparison to other platforms. So you want the data to drive your decisions, not just your own personal thoughts towards any of these platforms, is what I've found. What I feel about TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or X or any of these channels doesn't really matter as much as what the target audience is going to respond on. So if it's a channel that I didn't anticipate, but I set the right tests up, I cast a wide enough net, and I see that pocket of performance, I'm going to optimize towards it.
So you would instantly go to, regardless of whether it's B2C, B2B that the business is selling, you'd sprawl across all social media and cast that net, see which one's working, and then dial your efforts in over there. Is that right?
Yeah, because I'm going after individuals. Even if it's a family office, a fund, a group of investors, there are individuals that I need to click on those ads, on those content pieces, that I need to complete a lead form and speak with us, or to physically press the buttons and convert on a platform and can complete an investment. So I want to understand those individuals. I take this approach towards B2B as well too. So my marketing agency, DNA, we have a full marketing campaign that utilizes all of these channels. We take our own medicine, if you will, and it delivers for us. We put content out on TikTok. We put content on all the social channels that we mentioned here. We run advertising. We distribute content. We do all of this because we're going after individuals. We want founders to be educated, on these vehicles, on these tools. We want them to have an opportunity to get in contact with us and welcome a warm marketing conversation, of course. If I just look at it as business and make generalizations about what business consists of or where business people go, I'm going to fall short. I'm mentioning those LinkedIn posts. Some of those are founders that I know. And, I could see pictures of them golfing with their son, and it makes me want to get in contact with them more. So if I just treat them like a business, or if I treat them like an individual, my content's going to look different, and it'll likely be more personalized and get more of a response from them.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting on LinkedIn because whenever they see a post that isn't strictly business, the LinkedIn police all come out underneath in the comments, and they, there's no place for this. You should get over to Facebook. People get, people get quite aggressive on there when people show anything other than your pure professional side. I personally think it needs more of that, but I'm also hesitant because of the LinkedIn police.
At times, a post should be of value to the target audience. So if it's a founder of a marketing agency talking about 2025 and their year and their balance of, being a father, being a husband, being an individual, being a traveler, whatever it looks like, and business and how it all interweave. There's a saying I subscribe to: the most successful people, you can't tell whether they're working or playing. They're just going after their vision of perfection. If they're on a boat while at Cannes or some type of festival in a remote location in the world, they're there for business. They may be with other business contacts and partners there, strategics, but they're showing the personal element, that they're a human. And that could check boxes for the value of the target audience. Okay, this is a person, it's an individual, looks like they have a great life, looks like they're very intentional with their time. That shows a mastery in its own right. And they're able to then produce these results, and they're talking about both in their post. Maybe that's inspiring to them and they want to make those shifts in their own life. Maybe it makes them more intrigued in what that individual does and working with them or strengthening the relationship with them. I like to have a personal relationship with clients, with strategic partners. It doesn't happen every time, but I could tell you it feels more real in this day and age, especially. So there are approaches and benefits towards it that I could point out. And as a whole, as long as you're providing value to your audience across these channels, it should show up in engagement. The last thing I want to mention there just really quickly is the haters. So those people that are commenting on the posts and saying, what is this going on here? I'm not playing for them, right?
Yeah.
If I'm looking at an advertising campaign, a 1% click-through rate can be very strong on most ad channels. Maybe, it's 3%, 5% higher on some social ad platforms, what have you. That means the majority of the audience doesn't care. They're not clicking. Do I want to focus on them? No, because as long as I'm getting enough clicks to get enough traffic, to get enough conversions, to substantiate my goal, I don't have to worry about what the people who didn't click are thinking or, how they care. There's reputation. I want to make sure I feel proud about what's getting out and it's in line with the client's brand, with my brand, with whatever it's, promoting. But I just need enough of the people to press like or comment or this is great. And if there's some people in there that are putting negative comments, sometimes I'll see a post about business that turns into a political fight. As long as there's enough people who are finding, real gold there and speaking to it, and it produces the conversions, the measurable results that we're looking for, I don't have to worry too much about those that are not getting involved.
Yeah. That's a fair point. It's sometimes easy to gravitate towards those negative comments. That I think I've certainly been guilty of that. Right? There can be 25 positive comments, but there's one unhappy person in there who decides to have a dig, and it's easy to focus on it.
Yeah, I'll work on campaigns that are around energy, something to progress humanity, and that is a political topic here in the US. And I'll see people who feel that disagrees with their political views and they need to be warriors in the comment boards, and it turns into something that it's not. So there's always going to be someone that has a differing perspective or opinion. I just want to build up a strong enough audience of those that are able to find alignment and move forward.
Jason, is that something you have to be mindful of? And the politics in the States is, it's no secret. It's more divided now, arguably, than ever, right?
Yes.
And it is very much a tribal nature. And like you say, if you're going on the green side, then you're going to rule out a lot of conservatives. You're talking about half the country, right?
Yeah.
And maybe not half of them, because most of them are probably sat in the middle somewhere. They just lean right slightly, as opposed to all the way on the other side. Is that something that you have to be mindful of in these campaigns? Do you try and sit in the middle to please both sides, or how do you play that out?
There's different perspectives towards this. So let's say you break it down into thirds, a third right, a third left, a third in the middle. It's not going to be very easy to talk about topics that are political in nature and appease everybody. So some clients will choose to lean in one direction or the other. There are even some issuers that are media platforms that cater to one side or the other. And your targeting has to, really focus on who you're going after. If you bring in the wrong prospects to a comment board, it's going to show up, and you're going to have to do some level of community management, reputation management. There are different approaches towards that. If you're not talking about political topics and just focusing on what you do, you may not need to deal with too much of that. But one post may, arise a certain discussion that can be, pretty heated. I think the audience forgets whether they're reading a post, from Fox or CNN and, commenting accordingly, or whether they're reading about an investment opportunity for oil and gas, right? But
Yeah.
I don't think there's one right answer to this. It's more along the lines of determining your brand, what it stands for, what it doesn't speak about, your communication style, as well as your community management best practices, so you can know what to do when these type of situations present themselves. But I don't think there's one correct answer. I think brands find things that work for them. Sometimes they have to change that up over time, but it is a changing landscape. We're all learning every day, and what works today may not work in a couple months, particularly with world events. And I could tell you it shows up on investment campaigns, but there are always groups getting investments, even if there's, a headline around war today, that there will still be investments that take place.
That's interesting. It's very interesting. But I find it fascinating to look at LinkedIn as a platform. I love LinkedIn. I think it's a great platform, and I like it because the posts, they're not generally they're not short form. They're almost short blogs, right?
In many cases,
they're not just quick one-liners like other platforms. And I get a lot of value from that. Spend too much time on there because of the result of the fact that they're long posts. But I actually get a lot of value from there. And on the flip side, we're constantly hearing about attention span is waning and people don't have the focus and attention. And then when I'm spending this time on LinkedIn, because I'm thinking about TikTok and short videos on TikTok and short form content, and people want this bite-sized information. Yet on LinkedIn, this long form content seems to thrive. I mean, some of them, incredibly lengthy, and I find myself reading them to the end. So there's not, I'm sure there's a lot, and they get a lot of engagement and a lot of likes and a lot of comments. What's your take on it? Is that purely a LinkedIn thing, the long form content, or is there a place for it elsewhere?
I've been seeing it more on Facebook as well, where it's a long description, the messaging, where historically it's more around the image, the video, shorter text that doesn't need to be expanded. So when I see that happening, it tells me, hey, this is working for brands. And we test out different lengths and see what works best for a given brand, a given campaign. I'm definitely a fan of it on LinkedIn. Again, it allows me to get a better understanding for someone that I just know digitally. There was a point in my career in advertising where I realized, hey, some people I know well. There's other media buyers and agencies that, as a mobile ad network, I'm working with that I know very little about. So I'm always looking for those moments where I can learn more about somebody, whether it's over a phone call or just reading about it online. Reading about it online, it's then going out to hundreds, if not thousands, if not more people. So I think it's a great place for it if I could get that deeper understanding of the product. I will say it should pass the glance test or follow other formats that are working for other brands, other individuals. Sometimes, and this may just be my personal perspective, I'll see, a long piece of copy and think, I don't have time for that right now. Plain and simple.
Is that your mindset in the moment, though, or is that the copy doesn't start well? Because I've tried it.
Well.
I've tried it. It's not put my hand out. I've put long, lengthy posts up there, and they've bombed, badly. But that's because I'm not a copywriter. I'm not a content creator. It's not a skill set I possess. So I think with the right creative start to that, and there is a skill to it, man. And any how much of the content on LinkedIn is actually performing well versus the content that isn't performing well. There's a stark difference between those that are and those that aren't. And I think there's a certain value in either hiring, but then if it's your own brand and if it's your personal brand rather that you're putting out there, is hiring somebody in to do that for you on your behalf the right thing to do? They're going to capture your message. There's so many things to weigh up on there. But I see it as a key stream for clients, for myself, and for my business, and just trying to navigate that. And I'm relatively new to. I've been on there for a long time, but I've been a ghost on there for so long. So just trying to start engaging and just trying to test some different angles.
Yeah. I'll go back to that marketing strategy and the competitor audit and really getting a proper gauge on what's working for other brands, whether it's a personal brand or a company brand. And if you are seeing post formats that you like, if you're seeing posts that get a high amount of engagement, likes, comments, what have you, you may want to test that out for yourself. And like you said, it's all a matter of presentation. So if it's long paragraphs and a long post, or if it's very short paragraphs in the beginning of each sentence, paragraph, and the spacing speaks about the topic, and it can do that, type of glance test successfully, where someone can look at it, get a feel, and then tell themselves, "Oh, this is actually really good," and then spend more time reading it, then realize they've been reading it for 5 minutes, or digital metrics a very long period of time. I learned this with email writing years back, where if I write it like it's a formal letter, like I learned how to craft in grade school, it's not going to get a response. If I'm doing these short little email paragraphs and intentional about my bolding and where I put my spacing, question marks, everything all the way through, I'm going to get a much higher reply rate. So it's the same thing, but for a broadcasted audience on LinkedIn. Take from other examples, test out different formats for you, go with what's working. I will say LinkedIn could be tough to get the same volumes, the same increments of likes and comments at first. As you grow your audience, that may change, but it's all a matter of the engagement. You could even build a social boost pod. So if you have the first social boost pod I was invited to, I was creating a lot of content at the time, 20, 40 different speakers, WhatsApp group. You'd post your long form content pieces there. No conversation, no chat in the WhatsApp group, just posts of the LinkedIn articles. And we would know what to do. We'd hop in there, comment. And if you get 10, 20 comments, you're going to be prioritized, flooded with more traffic in the algorithm. So take that into account as well. If you're posting just to post, or if you're posting for specific goals around the engagements, even manufacturing some of that, you're going to be in a much better place.
That's interesting. Didn't even know that existed, Jason.
You can create your own.
It's gonna, yeah, right. Yeah, it's not a bad shout actually. Yeah, that's a good shout. So talk to me about the DNA. You as the business has grown, I see you guys doing very, very well. Obviously, you've been around for a long time. It's been 12 years, I think. You've been in the market now. Where did complexity show up faster than expected then as you were growing? Where did the, because every business suffers that, right? As it grows and expands, and you guys have grown and into a great place. So what stresses first?
Complexity showed up right now when you said 12 years, and I realized I was a younger man at the time. No, I I could tell you that it goes fast, but I could tell you that we had to find our niche. We had to find our specialization. There's thousands of marketing agencies in Los Angeles, in California. You need to be able to do something that stands out. You need to find the right strategic partners, the right referral partners who tell your prospects, hey, speak to Jason, talk to DNA, work with DNA. You should do this with DNA. Hey, we're going to fund this so you could do it with DNA. That's been instrumental to our growth. Let the data show you what's working. So when I was first brought into equity crowdfunding, and then later different types of investor acquisition campaigns, I didn't love it. Some of the budgets were smaller, timelines were shorter, not the best recurring business for an agency. But then we built such strong referral partners, and we were of tremendous value to our clients. Massive return on ad spends. We'd watch our clients grow their team exponentially throughout the course of our engagement, and from one round to the next investment round, and take on more market share. I've seen groups go from $20 million valuations to multi-billion-dollar valuations. It's very exciting. It's very rewarding to be a part of. And I found clients really scale as it's working. Even a solopreneur can go from a few $1,000s a month in advertising spend to 6 figures, 7 figures a month in advertising spend. But because of the results and how they're pulling from that and reinvesting back into the marketing and incrementally growing. So you have to give these verticals, the products you're building, enough time. There is the balance of longer term, higher budget clientele and higher volume. And you have to determine what's best for your business and for your growth plans and how to make sure you're maintaining quality, how you're building, I'll tell you, conflict resolution systems if you're getting into much higher volume of clients. Because if 1 out of 50 clients isn't happy, that's not a big deal if you work with 20 clients for the year. It's a lot different if you're working with 100 clients at a time, and you're in these conversations more regularly. And conflict resolution, so building a stronger relationship, stronger partnership out of that. Not just saying this client's upset, let's get rid of them, but really building stronger rapport and understanding who you're talking to, doing the right listening, finding the right solutions. It's not easy. It's the toughest thing to train for in the agency world, in my opinion. So you then have to have the right listening of the space. And the marketing world has changed a lot in 12 years, even in the past 2 years, let alone the past 5. So all of those complexities lead into it, and finding the right talent, finding people who are excited about what you're doing, will put in the extra work for clients and put in the extra steps, not just clock out when it's time and say they completed what they were assigned, but really managing things to the point of effectiveness and the creativity that's required to get it there.
Jason, what you guys do, and I'm trying not to overplay this too much, right? But you're in a position where you can, I don't want to say make or break a company, because you can't break a company, but you can really make a company. It can be a make or break moment for a business owner that comes to you and goes, do you know what? We need your help. This is, I've got a roadmap of X number of months, and I've got a budget that's going to get me to there. And this is my kind of last attempt, right? If this doesn't work, I'm done. The business is done. Who knows? Maybe their house is at stake. Their family's lives are at risk of being disrupted. Their medical expense. I'm not trying to overplay it, but I'm being serious. There's so much at stake for a small business owner or a founder or a medium-sized business owner whose business is, whatever the size of the business, is irrelevant. There's so much at stake with that. And when they come into you, they'd ask you to rescue me, right? So, a lot of the time, I'm sure that's what you get, right? It's like, what can you do? How much of the weight of that, do you carry personally? Is that something that keeps you up at night? Is that something that you've had to learn to deal with or adapt to?
Yes. To elaborate, it's all about communication. If I talk to a prospective client and they open up and share all of that with me directly, I have options in terms of how I respond, how my sales reps, how my team responds, and how they're trained and how we conduct those conversations. And if we overpromise and just talk about our case studies and success stories, hey, 5X on pixel data on this advertising campaign, group raised $45 million, and X group raised $2 million. If I just focus on that and tell them, hey, that this is going to be great for you, it is doing them a disservice. If I try to go to extra lengths to explain what we can do, what we can't do, the inherent risks with marketing, not every marketing campaign works. Capital raising, whether you're talking about pitching VCs and angels or whether you're talking about using an online platform, the combination of the two. If I speak about success rates, I mentioned, the median and half of the raises are pretty plateaued. The top 10% get all of the investments, and why those groups are in the top percentages and what they need to do to have a shot at that. I find I could have a more clear relationship, a more clear set of objectives and goals with that client, because at the end of the day, it's their company, it's their goals, it's their gambles, their risks that they're taking on. I didn't show up to their house and say, hey, you should start a company, and hey, you should, put your house on the line and your family, and quit your job and don't have any income, you should run an equity crowdfunding campaign. You should spend money on it, and you should raise investors, and it's going to raise the capital. So I really have to ground the expectations a bit. If someone tells me, hey, we're really counting on you, if this works, we're going to be great. If it doesn't, I'm going to have to shut down the business. I need to take a step back and explain to them this. Can I get traffic from historical equity crowdfunding investors to their offering page? Can I put together a campaign that's designed to get more engagement, more of an emotional response from that audience all the way through? Yes, absolutely. Can I guarantee results? Any results? Can I say, hey, you're going to get an investment, let alone 1,000 investments that produce $1.5 million or $2.5 million? Reg CF, the average investment is around 1,500. Regulation A plus, the average investment is around 2,500. If I share with them what I can do and what I can't, and that I can't just have my team work harder or work longer or knock out 1,000 push-ups, I know if I could just do that, I'd probably be in better shape. It'd be great benefits for everybody, but it's not how these tools work. I can't tell Facebook just to work harder, or LinkedIn, get us more conversions. I could say get us more traffic. But if I speak to that and then strategize, brainstorm, come up with ideas around how to perform better with them, I'm going to be in a much more real place. So does it still weigh on me? Yes. If a campaign's underproducing, are we putting extra steps in, putting other variants? Here's what I can do. I could launch new channels. I could switch up some of these channels. I could change up the variants, the audiences, the creative, the visuals, the messaging, the funnels that we're taking them down. What we're putting into that in terms of social proof and third-party validation to show, more traction and build more trust. Yes, I just can't guarantee the results, and I'll have clients that prospective clients will not work with us unless I could give them that guarantee at times. And ethically, I have to, come back to them with this speech. Hey, you've worked on a lot of these. Is my campaign going to work? Am I going to be able to raise the full 5 million? And in 2 months, I have to speak to them about actual statistics, not just my perspectives, what we can do, what we can't, what we're going to do if it's not working. And if they feel confident about that, we can move forward together. They know what's at stake. And I'm just trying to get them the best foot out the door. I'm trying to run tests that are comfortable, yet meaningful enough towards their goals and could be scaled up to hit the full level. It's still tough to detach at times, mentally, if a campaign's not going well. The opposite too, if a campaign's going really well, it's hard to hop into the next call and be, grounded, at a neutral and not just come in overzealous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I suppose, thinking out loud here, Jason, but your job is to get eyes on it. If they decide that they don't want to invest, you can't carry that responsibility, right? Because you haven't founded the business, you don't know what product they make, what product whether it's a SaaS company or a physical product, you have had zero control over that.
Yes.
Your job is to bring eyes on it, and if you get the eyes on it, then that's kind of your job, right? Done there. It's as long as you're getting the right eyes on it. If those eyes decide that they don't want to click or don't want to buy or don't want to invest or don't want to just partake at all, then there's not a great deal you can do at that stage. And that's, I suppose, getting that message across and getting people understanding that, right?
As marketers, we're always, approaching it with the problem-solving mentality. There's always things to improve, but with the wrong communication up front, it could set the wrong expectations. So it's very important to clarify what you're actually doing. We're running advertising and bringing investors in. We're reaching out to investors and looking to get them on calls with you. We're putting out content so you're getting a higher conversion rate. We're not selling investments. We're not selling the capital. We're not selling e-commerce sales or, B2B sales, or, it's very important to be detailed about what you can do, and then play to the goals, together there, and quickly dispel any misconceptions around that. If someone goes to a personal trainer tomorrow and says, hey, you've trained these Olympic athletes, and in their head, they think they're going to be an Olympic athlete in, a year. It's that trainer's responsibility to say, no, what we're going to do is X, Y, and Z each week. We're going to have to look at the results together. I can't even promise, specific levels of weight loss or strength gain. We can't look at what the side effects could be, even if those are the goals that we're playing at together. We have to look at what we're actually doing together. and have been able to operate in a much better place once I figured that out as a business. Because you're right, it can weigh heavily with you, and people's communications can matter. And like you said, if we're not shaping their product, if we're not building their company, if we're not building their valuation, if we're not building these things, I could advise on it, I could share notes, but it's just outside of our area of expertise, what we're actually being brought in for.
Excellent. Jason, last question for you. With crowdfunding seems to be taking off, and I saw a LinkedIn post recently, or it was a blog, I think it was produced by LinkedIn, the number one job increase this year, the number one role that's increased this year is founder. There seems to be more founders now than ever before, and with that I would expect a flow of crowdfunding. Is this a space you expect to expand greatly in the coming years?
If you asked me that question in 2016 or here in 2026, I would say yes. 2016, it's moved a lot slower. Yes, definitely have seen that content and spoken with individuals who are becoming founders and believe that stat. I believe this will be the primary approach towards capital formation in years to come. I've had to change up the amount of years I say, so I just say years to come.
Yeah.
And there is a lack of awareness around it. That being, and I'll tell you that there's been less than 10,000 companies that have done a Reg CF campaign, period. And Regulation A Plus combined. From the stats I've read, in 2025, there was over 900 million, about close to $1 billion produced from Reg CF, Regulation A Plus. So it is growing, but it's still a small sliver of the economy. There are still, I think 24 million some odd or more small businesses in the US. More of them should be going to digital channels to bring in more investors if they are looking at capital to grow as an organization. We live online. Think of how much time you spend on your devices. I spend on my devices. Everyone spends. Their screen time is a private thing. You try to show the screen time app. It's hours on these different apps. So why wouldn't we learn about new investment opportunities? Why wouldn't we participate as retail investors in the next growth stage companies potentially, or just companies that are local and we want to support and be a shareholder? A lot of the investors just want to be along for the ride at the retail level. In polls on why people participate in crowd funds, it's not put $1,500.
Okay, that's a big part of it, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. That film project, they want to have their name in the credits. They're not looking to retire off their $500 investment, their $1,500 investment. If there's upside, fantastic. But either way, they get to go to the theater with their friends and family and look for their name in the credits. If that showed up as one of the perks in the deal, they get to say, hey, I'm an owner in this. There's a lot of benefits that attract people beyond just the capital appreciation. In some cases, asset depreciation. So there's a lot to it. I do believe there'll be more of a spotlight on the space as there's more investor success stories, as there's more companies that go public and have liquidity events or have merger and acquisition events or different revenue shares that investors are able to share very, very strong stories around. I've seen it happen in Web3 and in other verticals. It will happen here. It's just a matter of when. If it's not this set of laws, it'll be another set of laws, but around targeting investors online, building up a strong community, having thousands of individuals put funds into what you're doing. And if those thousands of individuals have an exit when the valuation is, in the billions or more, people are going to talk about it. You're going to hear about it.
Going to make headlines. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Jason, you touched on Web3 there. I could do another hour talk. We could do a Joe Rogan. I could talk about that. I could talk it to death.
I'll light up a cigar. We'll do it.
And I'd love to have you back on and we can do that, Jason. That would be great. I really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure.
And we've, it's a lot of information. It's got me thinking. It's got me thinking deeply, and I appreciate you very much.
My pleasure, Lloyd. Thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed the discussion.
Just lastly, Jason, what was your podcast one more time?
Test, Optimize, Scale. You can find us on audio channels. You can go on to YouTube. You can go on @Digital Niche Agency on YouTube as well. See our webinar series, guest appearances, over 225 episodes of the podcast. You can also go to digitalnicheagency.com and find all of this content.
Perfect. Jason, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Appreciate you very much, man. Take care.